Hello and welcome. I'm Abhinav Pandya, founder CEO Usanas Foundation, and today we are back with our activities after the organization of Mahana Pratap Annual Geopolitics Dialogue 2023. Definitely, it was a very busy and hectic event. So for almost a month, we did not have much activity. But today, once again, we are back, and today we have Ambassador Stobdan with us. Ambassador Stobdan is the former Indian ambassador to Kyrgyzstan and an expert voice on China and Central Asia. Still, I'll read out his formal introduction, okay, and after that, we'll start the interview. Ambassador P. Phunchok Stobdan is well known Indian strategic thinker and expert on Asian affairs. He had a distinguished career as a diplomat, academic, author, and a national security expert. In his professional career spanning over 40 years, he had held various assignments both in the government and outside. He has served as senior fellow at IDSA under the Ministry of Defense, director and first secretary at the Embassy of India, Almaty, director at the National Security Council Secretariat, director at Center for Strategic and Regional Studies, Jammu and Kashmir, India's ambassador in Bishkek. Currently, he is a distinguished fellow at Delhi Policy Group, New Delhi, and President Ladakh International Center, Leh. Welcome, sir. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to have you with us today. So, sir, we'll have an interview with you today, and it's going to be of about 35 to 40 minutes. We'll have about 5 to 7 questions for you. So, I'll just request you to time your answers accordingly. Okay, without wasting much time, I'll start with the first question. Okay. Uh, this question dominating every mind, like strategic experts or even a common watcher of China, is that what does China want? As you only said in one of the interviews, they are not our enemies. Civilizationally, historically, China has never invaded us. India has faced attacks from the northwestern borders, but China has not invaded us. We have had cultural, economic, and religious exchanges with China. But in the recent times, we see these border skirmishes, we see the frictions which started with the 1962 war, recent the Galwan clash, Tawang clash. Still, we are not very clear with the real intentions of China. Are these simply diversionary tactics to deflect attention from the domestic turmoil, or just to show themselves as a superior power because they cannot do much in the Taiwan Straits? So we would like to know your answers to this question. And also with this, the current status on the India-China, this LAC border situation, like what is the current status?
Well, this is a very difficult question. I don't think anybody will answer because it's related with a lot of political overtones and risk being called yourself as an anti-national. If something you say which is not conducive to the sentiment of the people. So this sentiment, whether it is correct or not correct, whether it is artificially created or not, I cannot say. But I look at China as a civilization. I look at China as a neighbor. I don't look at China in a contemporary political context. So these are difficult issues. Well, I have many answers to this, but I would not make any comments on those. What are the reasons that we don't get along? I don't think anybody has got correct answer. Also, it is a passing phase. It's a transitory stage. Well, I think growing power. It's more about the reflection of the power equations. So let's talk only in terms of balance of power rather than India, China, bracket that thing is a very, very risky proposition. I come from a border area, so I would not comment on this area, these issues. But as far as Sino-Indian border issues are concerned, well, the pressure is on. Uh, I would say that Chinese have come back to occupy the 1959 claim lines, and to a certain extent, mm, they may have been successful, but at the same time, we haven't lost any territory. Um, Prime Minister Modi said that Chinese are not here, not to be seen, or whatever he said in Gujarati or Haryanavi, he said that. That is correct. Technically, Chinese have not come in. There is a line that they haven't crossed, but there are those areas which we claim and which they claim there perhaps they have come in. And in certain areas they have left, in certain areas they haven't left. And I don't see they are living so easily, which requires a huge political wisdom to resolve that. And I don't think military can solve that. I don't think even bureaucrats can solve that. It requires a certain amount of top-bottom approach that we have stopped after the Wuhan process that we had started in 2017, followed by Mahabalipuram summit, and the third never took place. And it's something like Russia and China did in the 90s. The two leaders met, and after that, they have resolved something like 7,000 border disputes. And today, they hardly have few problems in the Usuri sector or in the Pamir areas. But this model we haven't worked. We still follow the bottom-up approach. The militaries are holding the ground, and the PLA is holding ground on the other side. So we keep accusing each other of the history. We revoke all those British period, the colonial era. But I don't see at the moment we are anywhere near to any border resolution. Uh, Border is tense. Even today, I saw a lot of activities in the air. Aerial activities have intensified. Probably there are transportation activities, but border is quite problematic. Well, everybody is prepared for that, I suppose.
Uh, Unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I mean, definitely, you didn't speak much, but still, we could read we could read between the lines and the subtle signals which you were giving, through your answer. But sir, coming back to the real intentions, I mean, we see these regular incursions, aggression on the border. Okay, so is it just? I mean, can you define it as a very temporary, short-term tactics, or is there something long to it? Like you mentioned that China solved its border disputes with various other countries. Can we do that? Or Chinese have something different in their mind, some kind of a long-term design?
No, essentially, it stems from the unresolved territorial issues. And those have not been resolved by the British. We are not able to resolve it. And the Chinese sees this as an opportunity to extract more territories. Since there is no defining parameters to set it, we believed in McMahon line, believed in Johnson line. These are not been recognized by the Chinese. So what it meant is that I think they are working on the history of Tibet, that Tibet had a lot of claimed areas in the Indian Himalayas, which were ruled by the British government. Once the British left, the Tibetans claimed these territories from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh at many, many places. But Pandit Nehru chose not to listen to the Tibetan demands. But the same demands are today being raised by Chinese. So I think they have a blueprint on which they are working. It's not that Ladakh belongs to Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping knows that Ladakh belongs to somebody. Who is that somebody? So that has not been defined. Unfortunately, we ourselves follow in the Tibetan claim line. We don't have a narrative of our own. What is the basis of what is the uh, interpretation of Indian narratives to claim Ladakh? We just say Ladakh is part of India, but if you go a little bit deep into it, there is no narrative. I believe this Sikh kingdom had conquered this area. Ranjit Singh, the Gulab Singh, or the Zorawar Singhs, these all belong to Dogra Sikh kingdoms. But we hardly talk about these gentlemen. Nobody knows Ranjit Singh here. Everybody knows Dalai Lama. Now, Dalai Lama is not an Indian figure to be cited as that because Dalai Lama is worshipped here, therefore it is Indian. Dalai Lama is a Chinese phenomenon, so it's Chinese title. So the problem lies in the narrative, and the more we play this narrative, the more we're likely to lose territories. If you want to say Buddhism, well, we hardly talk about Indian Buddhism. We supplant the Indian Buddhism with the Tibetan Buddhism. So, which is a very difficult thing. Even the Tibetans will never recognize themselves as Indian. So, it's only one side that he belongs to us, and therefore whatever he does is good for us. That's not very clear. To me, it's very hazy interpretation, very hazy. And the Tibetans are not saying that the PLA is coming. Tibetans are not saying, look, this is not Tibet. Why are you coming to Ladakh? This is Indian territory. But there also, I think they keep quiet. To me, I think there is some problem in the mindset. Either we are playing this game for somebody else. The Americans surely have some game planned. But on the one hand, we have this policy. On the other hand, we have a one China policy where we think this Tibet is part of China. But on the other hand, we cherish this intention. But I think we have fallen into the Chinese trap, and we will continue to fall into that trap, because even after 70 years, we continue to lose territories. That means something is wrong. Our policy is not good. We haven't reviewed our policies. After 70 years, we reviewed Kashmir policy, but we haven't reviewed other policies. So my thinking is that this is a very difficult area to understand. The whole Sino-Indian issue itself is a very difficult thing. But given the Tibet problem is not been reviewed, is it in our interest to play this, or it is not in our interest? If so, okay, in the name of Buddhism, you can say anything, but Buddha was not a Tibetan. Buddha was an Indian. So where is it that we need to import Buddha from outside and believe in something which is actually we are the first hand? They may be second hand. The Chinese are second hand. Japanese are second hand Buddhists. Thais are third hand Buddhist. Buddhism went to Thailand via China. So surely there's a deficiency in scholarship. A depth of understanding is missing. I think the British masters strategists knew this aspect far better than we do.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. That's certainly a big deficiency of the scholarship and particularly in the narrative building. As you mentioned about the narrative, I was reading in one of your writings. You had written that India is mostly playing up the POK narrative a lot, but not talking about the Aksai Chin. And India also, I mean, we can talk about the Leh Lashkar Silk Road and this Mazar thing in Xinjiang and all. But in case if we start talking about Aksai Chin, isn't that going to make China more uncomfortable and more aggressive on the border?
No, it's better to talk scholarly rather than politically. Politically, Home Minister did it on the 19th or 5th of August
Yes.
2019. The whole of Aksai Chin belongs to us, which led to Galwan. So if you are militarily and politically unprepared and say something which is premature, then there are consequences. At least if you talk in a scholarly language, there are less damage. You know, the Chinese keep writing. I read Chinese media every day. They claim Ladakh on the basis of something or the other on a daily basis. So I don't mind it. It's their interpretation, but I don't find Indian version of why Ladakh belongs to India. Just because we have a few soldiers put up there, so it belongs to us, it has to be explained properly. I never see Zorawar Singh anywhere in Ladakh. There is a fort next to my house, Zorawar Singh Fort, but in newspaper, in magazines, in scholarly journals, I don't find Zorawar Singh as a icon. Maybe I don't know. We talk too much about Sikh history, then the Khalistanis have their own version of territorial interpretation, which would include Ladakh, in the sense that I get a lot of letter from Canada, from Australia, from the Khalistanis that you are doing brilliant job for us, because the more you claim on the basis of Zorawar Singh and Ranjit Singh, you are actually talking about Khalistan. So there is no interpretation of a pure Indian narrative, which I don't know. The latest one that I propounded is the Sapta Sindhu. It's a Vedic
Yes.
definition. Why Ladakh? Ladakh is part of the Sapta Sindhu in the Vedic civilization. But if you ask a professor, he knows nothing about it. Ask JNU scholars, they know nothing about all these things. So where is Ladakh? Three idiot. Khardungla, some road or something. That's the understanding of Ladakh. Highest road or some high airport. Obviously, it's the geography you're talking, but you don't have a narrative, and which is unfortunate that Indian Army also doesn't have a narrative. And if I raise Zorawar Singh or a Dogra history, then there is another interpretation keeps coming. So that's unfortunate.
Definitely, sir. We need more scholarly voices, even in our diplomacy,
Yes.
than the bureaucratic voice.
Aksai Chin is so brilliant. I've compiled entire history and the geography, even the unfortunately the Union Territory of Ladakh today we show on the map, which is larger than the Andhra Pradesh or another 2 3 states put together. 85% of this Union Territory is ungoverned, unaccounted for, because the people live only on the 10% of the territory. Rest is not looked after. There is no post office. There is no police station. Nobody goes into these areas. I'm sure there are some wildlife in Aksai Chin or in Dolat Bepulde, some lizards, some birds. So I told the governor here, please send your people, official guys, to do some census of the birds. At least they are Indian birds, no? At least you can count them rather than leaving it vacant for the Chinese to claim. That is so we don't know governance also. Forget about territorial possession. Even the governance, if you are, there is a governor, there is a secretary, there are all kind of setup. But they sit in the city and they just have good enjoyment. But they're unable to hold the territory in terms of substance. Send your department, forest department should go there, wildlife should go there, the food department. Nobody is aware. So I would say 85% of the territory of Ladakh is still, nobody knows what those territories are about. So, I read the history of Soviet Union. Even in 1920s, they took care of Siberia, where nothing grows there. They had built railways, Trans-Siberian Railway. They did all kind of things in the 20s and 1920s and 1930s itself. So problem I think is that in our democracy, unless there are populated areas, you don't care. You don't care. I mean, you just give up.
Agreed, agreed, sir. So coming to my next question, what's your take on the changing contours of India-Bhutan relationship in the light of Bhutan settling its boundaries with China?
Well, I can only say this is a very sensitive issue. I have my own understanding of this uh, topic on India-Bhutan relationship. But I will only reiterate the official line which the Foreign Secretary made a couple of weeks ago when we had tension, and when the King of Bhutan was in Delhi some 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. Well, the Bhutanese are free to do whatever they feel like doing. They want to resolve their border with China. They are free to do that, but we will have to take care of our own interest, which means a kind of a we will not listen to Bhutanese and we will take certain measures to protect our interests, especially in the Doklam area. Uh, that's been made very clear. That's the language that I understood. The tone in which the foreign secretary made was very clear. You are free to do whatever you want to do. We will take care of our own interests. So that is unhappiness which has been expressed by. But I do see there is a change in Bhutan. Partly it's also because of the reflection of changes in India. We are becoming more nationalist now. So is Bhutan. If we assert our nationalism on Bhutan, the Bhutanese are going to, come back with their own problems. So I visited Bhutan and I sense that, look, you don't look Indian, you're from Ladakh. How do you feel? I said, look, I don't feel comfortable now. Compared to 10 years ago, I used to be very comfortable. Today, I've been asked, where do you come from? So I have to prove myself as an Indian on a daily basis now. That's a problem, which our neighbors also perhaps they feel it's a cultural issue, which is there. It's a reality. What can you do? So even as a Ladakhi, in the last couple of years, I do feel uncomfortable. I feel disconnected with the nation. That's another problem. There is no inclusiveness, which is fair. Okay, every minority has a problem, but the feeling that you get inside, that's awful. Awful that you have to be, you have to prove yourself every time. Otherwise, you're some anti-India or anti-national, or my face has to prove that I'm an Indian.
What are like the people from Ladakh or Arunachal Pradesh, do they also face this problem, like, this always being, or like anything being accused of
No,
being
no, it's
anti-Indian?
not. It's not that you have to. It's not a racial in the sense that it's the majority has changed in India.
That
The
may be a
community.
problem with Kashmiris. I've come across various Kashmiri students sometimes when they come to the go to the other parts of the country to study and all, because of like very hyper sentiments of nationalism or like identity on both the sides. They do have to face such questions. But I mean, I was just wondering, is it the same case with the Ladakhis also?
So everywhere is the same thing. You just manage. You suppress your thoughts according to the power, but nobody will tell you the genuine feeling inside, how awful you feel inside uh, when you have to answer a lot of things, when you are seen as you know not part of this system. Or I mean, I come from Ladakh. Have you ever come across any Ladakhi who is at the national level represented somewhere? We have an MP, of course. MP is elected. Yes, but have you ever seen in Delhi on the national television or in Jaipur or Udaipur that you stay or in bureaucracy? No, there's no voice, there's no face. So this
That's
community
a
is
very genuine concern. I'll agree with that on you. That's a
and
representation in
still,
bureaucracy, representation in the government at the highest levels. That is something which is, even I agree with that.
yeah. So we have a system now. More than 35 bureaucrats are sitting in Leh. Top to bottom, it's people coming from outside Ladakh.
Outside
So
Ladakh.
there's not a single Ladakhi who is part of the so-called the administrative structure here. I'm not saying that I should be part of it. I'm a retired man. I can't be. But point is it deliberate or is it? I don't know what it is. The arrangement is
Well,
very funny.
you
This
raised a very important question. The mighty Indian
this,
bureaucracy, has its own
this
ways.
gives a lot of ground. This gives you a lot of grounds to ponder yourself. You know what is going on.
Yes.
I mean, we never felt in the past like that. Uh, So a lot of things are happening. I'm not saying that we can be compared with Kashmir or Northeast. Things are not that bad, but gradually things are changing. It's a sentiment. The mood of the people are changing.
Thank you. Thank you. So my next question is on India's approach and policy towards Buddhism. Like China also has its own policy towards Buddhism in Tibet. India, partly you mentioned about, like India being the original homeland of Buddha, but still we are importing, Buddhism or trying to superimpose it with the Tibetan Buddhism. This is one area like, what should be or what is the current status of Indian approach towards Buddhism right now? My second question related to this is that in Arunachal Pradesh, in my recent visit, I saw that Buddhism is facing a major threat from the Christian evangelists and missionaries. Many articles have also come out. I'm not really sure if that's the same case in Ladakh also, but in Ladakh, I did find some cases of Islamic radicalization. So, would you like to throw some light on these issues? Because in Arunachal Pradesh, the danger, the challenge from the Christian expansionism missionaries is really severe. In Tabang, there is one church which they have erected. The locals resented that, they protested, but still they are able to manage, I mean, to keep that church intact. But in rest of the Arunachal Pradesh, Christian missionaries have really almost conquered.
Well, this thinking has come about now, but in the past, the Christian evangelists are seen as a source of modernity. Education, uh, health. Poor Indians cannot afford education. The government schools are pathetic. So it's only the missionaries who open up schools, the health centers. Today, yes, we have a different interpretation of all these things. I do agree with you because it's not just about the religion or the education or spin-off effect. There are political implication of what is. And in this context, what I see is that we have experienced ourselves, and the Chinese have experienced us. We have imported religion from outside, but those religions have divided India. Chinese have imported religion from India, but that religion has never divided China. That religion has unified China. I'm talking about Buddhism.
Yes.
Buddhism has never divided China. We have Islam, but now Islam has divided India into at least three pieces: Pakistan, Bangladesh, and us. So
Yes.
there are always problems about ideology, foreign ideology. The Chinese include even democracy as an ideology. which should not be accepted. Islam is one, Christianity is another one. But at the same time, what do you do? Hinduism, you have a Vivekananda Kendra, or Shri Shri has opened something in Tawang or some other places. Those things are going on. The problem is, like, I want to become a Hindu. How do I become a Hindu? I don't have a gotra. I don't have a caste. Recently, I went to the Dwarka place in Delhi for Havana. So when I gave money, everything, but the priest told me, now gotar batao. I said gotar nahi hai, nahi hoga jao. So I came back. I couldn't do my Havana. So there is this problem. So what do you do in those far flung areas in northeast? It's easy way to become a Christian rather than the Brahminical all this language we don't understand, common people. So yes, I but in Ladakh, yes, Islam is an old issue. Islam has been here in India, in Ladakh, for more than 400 years. They came from Turkey, they came from Xinjiang, they came from Kashmir, they came from all over the world. Ladakh is a very cosmopolitan. It was on the Silk Route. Traders brought Islam, the invaders brought Islam. Uh, so the problem is not so much about Islam. Problem is that I told you that we don't have Indian Buddhism. Ladakh was the epicenter of Ashoka and Kanishka. You know, if you go beyond Ladakh, it is called the Xinjiang. Xinjiang is the hub of Buddhism in those days, where the priests used to go from Andhra Pradesh. Gaustan is the Khotan, is the Gaustan, Kashgaria. So Indian Buddhism is neglected. We have another kind of a Buddhism, which is foreign Buddhism, and now almost all the monasteries are taken over by them. They're not even Indian citizens. So worry is that government has allowed Ladakh to be whitewashed with foreign religion. That's a source of concern, and this will have security implications because the Chinese don't send agents to Ladakh or spies to Indian Himalayas. They their their influence operation is so smooth. They have cross-border monastic relationship, they have tantric, they have many other sutra relationship. How to figure out, the intelligence guy cannot figure out whether he's a spy or not a spy. It's so smooth. So I would say Indian system has been taken for a ride. We don't have brains in the Indian system to understand these nuances of how the Chinese operate. uh, so I would say in the context of Ladakh, yes, there will be security implications in the long run. Monasteries have gone away. We don't have a single monastery where our own people are running it. That's a source of concern. The Northeast is something else. Nepal is something else. Nepal is the second largest conversion rate going on after China. There is a scope for, China has been atheist for a very long time. Uh, Fundamentally, they're all Buddhist. Even the Communist Party uh, uh, draws its strength from Buddhist community. There are enough number of books which tells you that Communist Party is just a party like BJP. But
Yes.
if I'm a member of BJP, it doesn't mean that I'm not a Buddhist. So if you are a member of Communist Party of China, doesn't mean that you are not a Buddhist. You can still be a Buddhist but be a member of the Communist Party of China. So uh, it is a propaganda which is the Americans are selling, that they're all atheist, communist. There is nothing like that. The Chinese are very much religious people. They are more fanatic than us. One
Yes.
thing they don't like is superstitious. They don't like religion. They accept superstition. They do not accept. And Xi Jinping prefers Buddhism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. He neglects the rest of the religion. Those are foreign religion. So Tibetan Buddhism is something else. Tibetan Buddhism is politicized now. Tibetans are fighting freedom on the shoulder of Lord Buddha. It's like, in Afghanistan you have such things like, now she was saying that something has been misused by uh,
Ah,
ISIS and others. So anybody can misuse this thing. Even Buddha can be misused.
yes.
Uh, I don't approve that. Buddha must be apoliticized. It's not politicized. I don't think at the doctrinal level there is fundamental problem between Indian Buddhism and the Chinese Buddhism. But the use of Buddhism as an instrument of diplomacy, as an instrument of strategy, instrument of military power. There is a saying that 97% of Buddhists live in Asia Pacific areas. 97% of Buddhists. Now, anybody who has a control over Buddhism will control Asia. That's right. Now, if we repent that law, Buddhism was Indian, it's too late. To an extent, we don't like Buddha. Buddha has been driven out, a long time ago. So, so to say that Buddha is linked with power, Buddha is linked with the market, Buddha is linked with industry, production system, which the Chinese are doing, then I think we have not been in this. Buddhism in India is more of a, archaeological, some remains or something like that. Buddhism is not even part of the economic dynamism today. So, in that sense, yes, in China, Buddhism means devotion. It means part of the national dynamics. Here, it is in a national. The government sponsored some events at the most, but 90% people, they don't know Buddha. Buddha is a decoration piece you keep in front of your door. Gives you peace. I went to Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad. There are at the airport you have massage centers at the bed of every massage thing, there is a Lord Buddha statue is kept. So it gives you pleasure, meditation, peace of mind. So Buddha has been seen as an entertainment or something like that. Uh, that's why it cannot grow. We
Yes.
we don't have a devotional aspect of it. We just have a some decorative kind of a thing. Politicians keep Buddha behind their seats, but I don't think they know anything about Buddhism. They don't value. They still believe in caste system. They still believe in many other rituals that Buddha is not supposed to do that.
So about this, it reminds me of an excellent poem by Harivansh Rai Bachchanji. It's called Buddha or Najgar. It's about the same thing that Buddha has been reduced to an idol in a drawing room.
Caricature, yeah,
Yeah. Buddha or Najgar. It's an excellent poem. If you
yeah,
get a
yeah.
chance,
I,
please
I
have a
know about this.
yes. So,
Rabindranath Tagore also wrote something like that. So those who value, they value. But I'm not saying Buddha is completely absent in India, but only few people understand the value of Buddha, and we cannot. Buddha is not practical. Also, in today's times, Buddha can't give you power. That can't give you luck. If you go in front of Buddha, he's just a statue. He's like Marx or Lenin. He doesn't have the power of spiritual, thing that you worship him, he'll give you some, he'll give you 90% marks in the exams. That is not going to happen with Buddha. So it's about logic, it's about philosophy, it's about other things.
So my last question is on another area of your expertise. It's about the emerging geopolitical dynamics in Central Asia. So basically, in the light of three developments, the power play between China, Russia, and US, and the new powers like Turkey and all. Secondly, the state of radicalization and Islamic extremism in Central Asia, particularly after the return of Taliban and the activities of Turkey to extend its sphere of influence. So in this whole thing, where do you see India? Is it just going to be a bystander or a meaningful player? You know? As of now, it looks more like a bystander or on the margins.
Well, we are viewed as a harmless people, good guys. They love us, Mithun Chakravarti, Shah Rukh Khan. These are good symbols of India. But while they might like us, but they can live without us. They hate the Chinese, but they can't live without Chinese. That's a reality. So we just had a summit yesterday and day before yesterday, Central Asia China summit, where all the five countries presidents were in Beijing with their spouses, and it was a tremendous development with the background of the Quad summit in Australia. So the Chinese Central Asia is over now. Central Asia story is over. The Chinese have deeply penetrated into it. The only answer which the Americans have is to play with Islam, like in Middle East, Islamic Brotherhood or something like that. that aspect has not been touched by Americans so far, because China Central Asia history is a history of territorial compromise. At the time of independence 30 years ago, when Soviet Union broke up, all these countries have to give voluntarily, they have to give up their territories to China as a concession, to be a good neighbor, to be a good friend, to get economic assistance and things like that. But it's a very risky proposition. Tomorrow, if somebody plays on the nationalism of these countries, and nationalism can be played only on the issue of land, and this can be, we are not capable of playing this thing. If we tell the Kazakhs or the Uzbeks to play up on their territorial issues, they are not going to take us seriously. Americans can do this, but just invoking ethnic nationalism is not enough. They will have to sponsor terrorism. They'll have to sponsor radicalism in Central Asia. But in the process, they're likely to lose the faith of the ruling, regimes, the former communists who are very secular. So far, this has not happened. Uh, Last year, when during the uh, previous administration, U.S. administration, uh, Pompeo went there to, incite them against China. This time, Blinken was in Central Asia to see how far they have distanced themselves from Russia in the background of the Ukraine crisis. But this is where the dynamics is operating. My own sense is that they won't be able to get out of the Chinese fold. Russia is weakened. Russia has nothing to play now. As it is, the Chinese have overtaken on the economic front. Now, very speedily, and I feel that yesterday, whatever has happened, they must have talked about some collective security mechanism with China. If that happens, then I think Central Asia has fallen into a trap. Yes, I would say last year when the Ukraine crisis happened, they were looking towards South. South means Afghanistan. They are willing to even live together with Taliban, but they dislike the Russians. It's a very, very serious development that took place last year. But today, Chinese saw that Russia can do nothing, so let me do something, and they've gone in a very speedy way, and we are simply engaging. But it's true that we have our threshold is higher than the Pakistanis are doing, more than even Turkey is doing. Turkey is in a bad shape. Turkey can't do much. It is one of the options, yes, Turkic speaking people. India, Iran can be, but Iran is playing a different game altogether. So I think for us, we don't have easy access. That means that we are not a power to be counted. We are not a global power to reach to Central Asia it'll be a very costly affair for us. Pakistan won't let you go. Afghanistan is a difficult area. Iran is playing game with us on many issues. So where is the scope for India to play? Well, politically, yes, the Central Asians see us as a very good people, nice people, Indian dancing people, on the streets, on the bridges. They say, when I was posted there, it says, I want to dance on the street, like in Bollywood. But when they go to Delhi, nobody's dancing on the streets. So they come back and say, no, no, this is not good. You show something else, but there is something else. I never see those beautiful girls in Delhi. So I said, no, there is a special city called Mumbai where you have to go and see those girls. They're very surprised. They live in an illusion about India. But for many people, India is like a dark cloud. They're not hazy, not clear about India. Is it a power? It is what is it? Well, some people try to look at India from some religious, Islamic, non-Islamic color also. Uh, but yes, we have a good reputation because from the Raj Kapoor days, we have a reputation, which is good. We don't have aggressive intention towards them, harmless, benign. That is in itself is also nice. Any other thing on Central Asia? Yes, that's my expertise actually. Buddhism is just a pastime. Uh, Free time I do write something here and there, but I'm not a authority on Buddhism.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Just one last question regarding Central Asia only. So ultimately, the do you feel that, I mean, you mentioned about the Americans, the possibility of Americans playing up the Islamic card. Now, that this is the only area left, where you don't have a situation like Afghanistan or West Asia. But is it likely to happen? Because we have already seen Uzbeki cadres joining ISIS, and also this, the terrorist organization working in Xinjiang. So, given that, what is the likelihood of, this Islamic extremism and terror groups cropping up in this area and making a complete mess of this area?
No, the desperate Islamic societies in Central Asia is waiting for change. They lived under the shadow of this communist kind of thing for a very long time, but they don't have enough freedom. Democracy is not flourished. George Soros and others are keep on trying something other through NGOs. European Union keeps trying such things on human rights and other issues, but they haven't been very successful because of the Russian and the Chinese support. So American has not gone so much deep into it, but that's the last resort. The Americans might try that. That's constituency has not been uh, covered as yet. But to me, the discourse that I see right now is that how Central Asia can be included into Indo-Pacific sphere of influence. Now, how Central Asia can be Indo-Pacific? Only one interpretation is that Central Asia borders with China. Therefore, anything encircles China can be Indo-Pacific. That is one interpretation of it. But yes, ultimately, if you walk from Central Asia, you reach Pacific. Yes, keep walking into somewhere, you reach the sea. So there are enough people who are willing to become Zelensky in Central Asia. Enough potential Zelenskys are there. They can play on such things, but the Central Asians are also very clever, unlike Ukrainian, that they'll be used and thrown once the American interest is covered. Today Zelensky has been supported, but Zelensky becomes Saddam. Zelensky can also become Saddam Hussein one day. That's very clear, or Gaddafi, or anybody else. So the history, the world has its own history. These people have their own history. Uh, it's a area where everybody has an interest, but very few nations can actually control it, except the Russians and the Chinese. Chinese have the economic control, the Russians have the intelligence and the media. It's a vertically divided society. From top to bottom, the conversation takes place in Russian. Media is controlled by Russia. So what is being fed by Moscow, or they will listen. So recently, all the Central Asians have to bow down to Putin, despite Putin's setbacks in the war. That's the extent to which, and they can't go anywhere. All the outlets are controlled by the Russians. Kazakhs cannot sell oil without Russians. The Uzbeks cannot sell cotton without the Russians. All the transportation routes are controlled by the Russians. Southward, yes, through Afghanistan, but Taliban is there. How do you take a risk with Taliban? So Iran is, again, it's a dicey thing. There are sanctions, uh, all over. There are sanctioned countries. So they have few choices. India is a good option, but what can we do there? We we grow cotton ourselves. Oil, we have spent 30 years to get some oil and gas, but not a single drop has come from Central Asia. Now, why do you go to Central Asia to get oil and gas when the gas is available in Qatar or in Oman or in Saudi Arabia? So there's no shortage of oil, and you know uh, see, there is a saying that stone age has ended not because there was shortage of stones. Something else has come up. So there
Yes.
are other source of energy will come up, and the Central Asia will become irrelevant after a few years.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Stobdan, for joining us today and giving such a wonderful and insightful interview. It's always a pleasure listening to insider narratives and insider discourse on such critical things of international relations and geopolitics. Thank you very much, sir. I would also like
Sorry
to
for
thank
this is an
our audience today.
unstructured. It's an unstructured interview. It's just a free this thing. But if you find something wrong, you just delete it before you
Sure, definitely.
telecast.
We'll run it through you, sir. We'll run it through you. I mean, this unstructured but very spontaneous. I mean, this is how, like, we get to know the
But
real
I always
thoughts.
thought you say something on Buddhism. I never thought you'll ask about Bhutan or something like Central Asia. Those are, I'm not sitting in Leh. I don't get this range. I only talk about some mountains here and glacier melt, climate change. So that's my immediate concern here.
Leh is a
Anyway,
beautiful
nice
place, right?
pleasure.
You're living in
Great
heaven.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very
Jai
much.
Hind.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.